Hello! Today I'm going to show you where you can buy different prosthetics to up your Halloween makeup game. I really like using prosthetics, as you can probably tell from my channel, because it makes application faster. It's usually a lot more realistic because you can sculpt all the different details of pores and fatty tissues and veins and everything into your makeup. And usually the material that it's made out of is really quite soft. So it's going to be way more comfortable to wear this for an entire night out, something that will move with your face and look quite realistic, rather than doing something like a latex and toilet paper build, which is what I started out with, which were often quite uncomfortable to wear and to remove. I want to show you both varied materials so I can talk about the differences between a foam latex prosthetic, a Prosaide transfer prosthetic, encapsulated silicone prosthetics, and gelatin prosthetics. I also want to show you prosthetics from different price points so that you have an idea of what is out there, what the differences are, and what will best suit your personal needs. All of the companies that I have included in this video, I reached out to and I said, hey, I want to feature your products in a video about prosthetics. Would you mind sending me out one so I can show it in the video? And nearly all of them said yes, and all of them sent me out more than one. So I'm kind of surrounded by an insane amount of prosthetics right now, which is super overwhelming and flattering. I'm very thankful to those companies for supplying me with these so that I can show you a range of really cool stuff today. And if you're worried about it, this isn't a sponsored post or anything, like no one's paid me money. I can say whatever I want about these things. So this will be a completely honest review looking at both the pros and the cons. Because I am who I am and what I value, I want to start with the higher end, most beautiful encapsulated silicone prosthetics, just because I think they're real showstoppers. So if you wanted to go all out and have the highest quality makeup for Halloween and you had the cash to do so, you can buy prosthetics from an actual makeup effects studio that makes prosthetics for movies, that makes stuff that goes on like Ben Stiller's face. You can buy it and you can put it on your own face and just like have the coolest costume in the world. So there is an effects studio in New York called Prosthetic Renaissance, and they make amazing prosthetics for feature film. In my opinion, they are one of the best effects studios. Everything they do, I'm absolutely in love with. And they're selling their prosthetics to the general public. And I don't think I know of another effects studio of their caliber that just sells to the general public like that. So I think it's actually really cool. But because the makeup that they're using is very expensive makeup to buy in the first place, I don't know if you've ever looked up how much silicone is, but it's quite expensive. And the process of making encapsulated silicone is very labor intensive. You have to put layer of cap plastic in, waiting for it to dry. And if you're having it intrinsically colored, each layer of silicone has to be put in, waited for that to dry, layer after layer. So they are going to be one of the more expensive prosthetics to buy. But if you were to buy all of the materials and make this yourself, from the life casting through to mold making and running them and sculpting them, all of that, like it's going to cost you so much more money to make it yourself. So if you wanted it just for a one night thing and you couldn't be bothered learning the whole process or buying all the materials to make it, and you wanted the highest possible quality prosthetic, then this is 100% for you. If you're more somebody who likes to do it themselves and would rather invest the time and the materials to learn them for themselves, maybe this isn't for you. It really just depends on who you are as a person and what your priorities are. And for me, what's been interesting about this is seeing how different people do their flashing, their cutting edge, their texturing, their coloring. Seeing it in person actually gives me a lot of ideas about how to improve it myself. For example, if you have a look at their cutting edge here, you notice that their flashing is very close to the sculpt and it cuts in to all the little areas and nothing is a straight line. And that's something that I haven't been doing, which I'm definitely going to start doing myself now after seeing it in their prosthetics and understanding how much of a difference that makes to having a nice edge when applying it. So they have really full-on gory things that you can buy, like this is a dog attack to the face which goes over the eyelid, powder, and I used one recently in our Cruella de Vil video. They also have more kind of like general wounds that you could put on like an arm or a back. They have smaller wounds you can buy. They also have full face crazy prosthetics. These are my favorite ones. They're mutated ones. So this is like a full mutated face. There's also a lower lip that comes separately. So there really is so much that you can do with these if you wanted to completely change your appearance. And their silicone is super soft, so it will be very comfortable and move with the face, as well as having really nice tight cap plastic edges. Now granted, if you've never applied a silicone piece before, I would recommend that you should research how to do it first, because you could easily buy something this nice and then completely ruin the application by blending away too much cap plastic and just having a silicone edge very visible. You can also easily mess up the paint job. So for stuff like this, it takes away most of the work. You're not sculpting it, you're not making the mold, you're not running it, but that last step of application for all of the materials here whether you're using foam or gelatin or Prosaide transfers, that last step of application, you do want to do a little bit of research about how to do it, and you want to do a little bit of research about how to paint it. So I am going to do a bunch of standalone videos as well, using each of these different kinds of prosthetics to give you tips and tricks about how I apply it, how I glue it, how I blend out the edges, how I paint it, and hopefully that will give you a good idea about the differences in materials and help you to have a really awesome Halloween. So for Pro Renaissance's prices, you're looking at the smallest prosthetics being around $76 upwards. And for the full-on like multi-appliance pieces, I think they're around $700. I'll check. Okay, so this one, which covers the majority of the face with that separate lip appliance, is $636. And then something like this Violent Attack face set, which has the eye and the cheek all ripped up, and then the second lip appliance for the other half, that goes for about $250. So I feel like these ones are the best value, because if I were to sculpt something like this, I would need to have a life cast to do it on, just because of how it all sits. And I wouldn't be able to make something like this for cheaper than $256 if I factor in the life cast and all the materials for mold making, for running it, for casting it. And on top of that, the time that it would take me. I forget that people don't realize how expensive it is to make these. Like some of my tutorials, like the clicker tutorial, cost me, I think it was around $500, $600 worth of materials to make that, and a whole month of my life. So it's not really surprising to me that these upper end ones cost so much money, but I can understand that other people are just kind of like, whoa, just because it's a whole world that you're not yet privy to. Alright, so the next ones I'm going to show you are Prosaide transfers by Brian Sipe. They're called Got Flesh by Brian Sipe Gamut Studio. Actually, I should check how you pronounce that. And the reason that I show you these ones next is because out of all the films that I've worked on and my own personal kind of studio stuff, I like using encapsulated silicone pieces, and I like using Prosaide transfers, and the reason being because they're both really soft materials. They move and they feel like skin. They both get really nice edges. Like if you apply them properly, the edges can just completely disappear seamlessly into the skin. They can both be intrinsically colored to look like skin and have that little bit of transparency, so they look very much flesh-like, which makes it a lot easier to paint it and have it look realistic. So that's why I really enjoy using Prosaide transfers as well. The one con of Prosaide transfers is that you can't get really big pieces with them, just because the glue needs to completely dehydrate, and if you have a really thick piece, that won't happen. So most of the pieces you'll see are going to be quite thin, flat pieces. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you want to do some kind of like full-on like orc thing, probably better off using silicone or foam latex. So if you wanted something that looks a bit more natural, whether it's age makeup or scars or scrapes or bullet holes or gashes, whatever it is, then the Prosaide transfers are going to look really good. They're going to work really well for this purpose. And I know that the formula that Brian uses for these is the same Prosaide transfer formula that he uses on all of his movies. So if you're not aware of who Brian is, he did Mystique's makeup for X-Men, which they used Prosaide transfers for her scales and stuff. And recently he was also working on the new Guardians of the Galaxy. He also worked on the recent Terminator film. Like, he's done a bunch of really cool work, and he uses mostly Prosaide transfers, and the same formula that he uses on these big feature films are the formula that you'll buy from him. And the cost on these range from about $20 for the smaller packs through to about $40 for the packs that have multiple prosthetics in them. The next company that I will show you is a company called Scream Team, who make foam latex appliances. And the reason that I know of Scream Team is because my friend Bobby works at Six Flags Fright Fest, and Scream Team provides all of their prosthetics for them, so they're very much in the Halloween spirit. So this is a like sinister piece that I'm going to use for some kind of orky makeup, I think. I've also got a wooden doll prosthetic from them, and they also have smaller things, whether it's like little ear tips or horns and things like that as well. So I've not had a lot of experience applying foam latex prosthetics, as you would know if you've been watching my channel. It can be a little bit harder to paint these, as they are obviously opaque, so you have to paint it in layers to kind of build up and fake that translucency of real skin. Yeah, but I will show you how I do that in a separate video. Once that is all filmed, I'll link it up here. So I'm realizing now that a lot of people probably won't know a lot about the difference between foam latex and latex. So in my experience, latex, I mean, if you build it up by itself, in thin layers, it will still be quite flexible, but if you build it up with cotton balls or tissue or anything, it can be quite rigid, as well as attaching itself to all of your baby hairs. Whereas foam latex, it's obviously got a foaming agent added to the latex, and then it's baked in an oven, so it comes out very, very soft. It moves really well with the face. You want these little thin edges so that you can apply it and glue those down and kind of blend those out with a bit of creamy Prosaide. So yeah, it's a very, very different feeling to those like shitty liquid latex prosthetics that you can buy at a Halloween store, which I wouldn't really recommend anybody get. Actually, this one doesn't smell too bad. Sometimes the foam latex ones smell really horrible. This one's very mild. So for their smaller horns, they run about $16, and the small ear tips are about $20. And then for the full face prosthetics, I think all of them are $60. The next company I will show you is mostly known for their gelatin appliances. They're called Nimba Effects. They have a really great YouTube channel. I recommend everybody watch it. They teach you how to apply and how to color all of their gelatin pieces, and the artist who does it is amazing. They do an amazing job every time, and they have lots of really good tips. Admittedly, I used most of my pieces already that they sent me, so I did pre-record that. I can cut that footage in here. What they are best known for is having really cool zombie prosthetics. They have a lot of prosthetics where the teeth are exposed and the lips are rotted away, and they have all really cool zombie brow pieces as well. So if you want to be a zombie, then Nimba is the place to hit up. So most of their pieces are made out of gelatin, so they are quite flexible and soft, and they have really thin edges to be blended out. Just realizing now actually that the thinner ones are going to be like a lot softer just because there's not as much of a bulk of material. This one has quite a thick lip edge, and it doesn't feel like it's as soft as the silicone or the foam or the Prosaide, but it is still soft enough to be able to move with the face and look quite realistic and like flesh. I will also say this, now that I've got all of the prosthetics out in front of me, I think my favorite sculpts are the ones by Prosthetic Renaissance and by Nimba, because I'm really digging their skin texture and all the little details that go into the fatty tissue and the wounds and everything. I think that's probably also a reflection on me loving traumatic makeup. But yeah, I really like the sculpts done by those two companies. It's really impressive stuff. Sort of the pros of using gelatin is if one of the pores is messed up and the appliance doesn't turn out as they want, they can just remelt that gelatin and pour it again. So it brings the cost of the prosthetic down because they don't have that waste. Also, these edges are blendable with witch hazel, so if you get a really good blend, you can have that turn pretty much invisible. In my experience, I've never gotten a gelatin edge to look as good as a Prosaide edge or as a silicone edge. For whatever reason, I feel like Prosaide gives me the best edges, followed very closely by silicone and then followed by gelatin. While Nimba Effects do use a higher grade of gelatin, they use a prosthetic grade, so it's not as likely to be damaged by sweat or by heat or by moisture. Gelatin as a whole, as a material, is a lot more delicate than the other materials. I've never personally had that happen to me. I've never been in a situation where I'm like, oh my god, my gelatin prosthetic is completely ruined. But I do know in theory it can happen. So if you do live in a very hot climate, or you're going to be going somewhere where you might get wet, maybe don't use the gelatin appliances. I think one of the best materials to use if you did live in a hot climate and you were going to be sweating a lot would probably be foam latex, just because it can kind of absorb some of your sweat, which sounds pretty gross. I know that The Walking Dead uses a whole lot of foam latex, and I think they have some pretty hot days in Georgia while they're filming. Prosaide transfers also do a pretty good job. You can actually wear Prosaide transfers in water, in pools and stuff, and they will stay on just because the whole appliance is made out of glue. So Prosaide transfers also work pretty well. So I have already used some Nimba prosthetics on my brother to create this look, and I did have a little bit of trouble with it fitting to my brother's face. So it was a bit too big, and with any prosthetic that you buy, if it's not made to fit, you may have problems with it fitting the person's face, whether it's too big or too small, just because it's not custom made to fit their face size. I have had the most success with Prosaide transfers. For whatever reason, Prosaide transfers are the easiest to kind of shift and move while you're applying it without it disturbing the shape of it too much. It's quite flexible. Foam latex and silicone, I've also had an okay time with adjusting it or cutting bits off or changing it to fit that person's face. For whatever reason, the gelatin I had the hardest time doing this with, but you can definitely make it work still. It's just a matter of persevering and having little tips and tricks from other people on how to fix that situation, whether it's using Bondo to kind of patch edges or using a stronger adhesive or whatever it is. Nimba Prosthetics also do these little reusable silicone pieces. They're not encapsulated, they're just plain silicone with thin edges, and I think the idea is that you can kind of patch these edges with something like creamy Prosaide or thickened Prosaide cream, and then if you wash them carefully enough and remove them carefully enough, you can reuse them. So I haven't used these yet, so I don't know how I feel about them. I don't really have an opinion on how well they work yet, just because I don't have any experience with them, but they are an option. That also reminds me, I should probably also say, pretty much all of these are going to be like a one-time use thing. Some of them say that you can, if you gently remove them, potentially use them again, but in my experience, after hours of wear and just your skin and your sweat and everything being all up in the prosthetics, and when you remove them, usually all the edges are so badly damaged and the prosthetic is so gross and sticky, I've never once reused a prosthetic. I pretty much always throw them out or stick them on a face on my wall. So the last one I'm going to show you guys is one that most of you have probably already heard of and seen because you can find them in a lot of stores now. They are Tinsley transfers. These are also Prosaide transfers, but they are quite different to the other Prosaide transfers that I've used. Most Prosaide transfers have what you call like a flashing canal around the sculpt. So I can show you on this mold, but basically there's an area where all of the excess material goes into, and then you have like a really nice thin edge while you're filling it, and it means that you're not going to have excess material, whereas these ones, the excess material actually goes all the way to the edge of this white paper here, which means that it's going to be very sticky while you're handling it. So when I first opened this, I was quite surprised by how sticky it was, so you have to be careful that it doesn't stick to your hands or roll over or stick to itself. It also means that it's going to be a little bit harder to get a nice edge. It's still completely possible to get a nice edge, but you really do have to kind of work at it and roll out that Prosaide transfer material with isopropyl alcohol on a cotton tip. So I do feel like the quality of the Prosaide transfer material that they use in this is a little bit lower than the full-on like movie quality effects. It is still good. It just takes a little bit more work to get it to do what you want than the other Prosaide transfers that I've used. I think in terms of Halloween quality prosthetics that you can find at Halloween stores, these are going to be the best. They're not as high quality as the rest of the stuff I've got in this table, but they are still totally workable and you can still get a good result with them. So these go for around $13 for a prosthetic, and they are very accessible. You can find them in a lot of places. And I will do a video going over how to apply these as well to try and give you tips and tricks on how to get the most out of them. I also think it's kind of interesting that a lot of them are pre-painted. I think these are, the only ones I have here which have a pre-paint job. So on the one hand, it means that you don't have to do as much work, but on the other hand, if you wanted to customize it or change it, it's already in there. So it is very much for a Halloween audience. Hopefully this was helpful information and not too much of an information overload. I also want to talk to you guys about using pre-made molds for Halloween makeups. I'm going to do that in a separate video, but I think it is interesting to look at the possibility of also buying molds so that you can customize the skin tone or the look of it, or so you can make multiple pieces so that you can practice applying it, or there's a bunch of reasons why you would use molds instead of prosthetics or prosthetics instead of molds, and so I will do that as a separate video as well, which you can check out here if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully it was interesting and you learned stuff from it, and thank you so much to all the companies that sent me out these prosthetics. I'm completely flattered and overwhelmed that you trust them in my hands, and it's made Halloween so much easier because I haven't had to spend days, weeks, months sculpting things. Literally, it's all just ready to go. I just pop it onto somebody's face and paint it. It takes me a day instead of a week to finish looks now. So it is greatly appreciated, and I will link all of the tutorials that I use this stuff for throughout this tutorial and also in the description box below. Alright, I'll be back soon with some more Halloween goodness. If you're not already subscribed, you can subscribe here and you'll be updated on when new videos are posted. Alright, I'll see you guys soon. Bye!